Hey, what's up, everyone? My name's James. Welcome to Living for Crits, and this is is it my or our? There's no one else involved. I don't have a co-host with me. We'll go with our. This is our Savage Worlds Adventure Edition Kickstarter vlog / live stream. And Jonathan Sodre's on. Jonathan, what's up, man? How's things in Brazil? So far, one viewer. So this is kind of like one of those things that I set up for a live stream. Oh, 2 viewers. Great. I set up as a live stream and didn't know who all would be able to participate and whatnot. Just kind of threw it together because I wanted to have a Savage Worlds chat. I have no big names coming on or anything like that. It's just me talking about Savage Worlds, and that's it. Oh, it's like, let's see, John. Scott Woodard on. What's up, man? How you doing, dude? So, yeah, and John is not good. Look at that. So I probably shouldn't be reading the comments like this because, like no one else can see them. I guess you can see them if you watch later on. I've never figured out how that works with live streams, if the chat is visible later or not, or it's just like me having a weird side chat. So I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I don't have like any big names on. This is just me talking. And I thought I would do a couple things. First off, I have a lot of folks who follow me either because I'm very loud and vocal in like aspects of the OSR community. So especially with Dungeon Crawl Classics and Mutant Crawl Classics, I'm on Glowburn, the Glowburn podcast, and I do a lot of blogging that has to do with those games that I do. So I have that there, but Savage Worlds is kind of like in this trifecta of role-playing games I play. So I've got, Dungeon Crawl Classics and Mutant Crawl Classics is one corner. The Cypher system is another corner. And then Savage Worlds is in a corner. So like all 3 games, if I'm playing something, chances are I'm playing one of those 3 games. So I thought that, especially right now, there is a Kickstarter out right now for the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. And any way that I can like help kind of push folks to try out some new games, especially games created by awesome people like Shane Hensley and the rest of the crew at Pinnacle Entertainment, I want to get people looking at those games. And especially because it's a different game compared to like, Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is the game that I'm always ranting about. So I thought what I'm going to do here in this is a quick overview of what Savage Worlds is for anyone watching this who knows that Living for Crits has been kind of focused recently on OSR stuff. Maybe if you don't know what it is, I'll go over real briefly that, and then we're going to take a look at the Kickstarter briefly, and then open up to questions, any questions that I can answer, in my expertise. I did note there's actually a really, really, really good interview with Shane Hensley of Pinnacle, the Savage Worlds creator, over on the Savage Cast podcast. So what I've done is in the notes below, you can go in and actually go download that podcast. So tomorrow at work, you can go listen to that. And there's other, I think Gnome Stew has an interview right now with Jody Black and with Shane. So if that's happening right now, then obviously people probably watching that or listening to that instead of this, which is totally cool. But if you're listening to this or watching this after, go back and, vice versa, because definitely it's great to hear this from them. But, my history with Savage Worlds, it was my first role-playing game outside of Dungeons and Dragons that I started playing in 2012. I had done a lot of 3rd edition, 3.5 and 4E, tried D&D Next, which would become 5E. I was D&D'd out, and I knew that the folks who made Savage Worlds made my favorite Western of all time, a Western role-playing game, as well as one of my favorite non-D&D role-playing games. Like in the early to mid 2000s, if I wasn't playing D&D, I was playing Deadlands. So this is like the game that I was playing a lot of back in the mid 2000s, and they made this, which is this is my original Savage Worlds Deluxe core book. So I got this at my friendly local game store, Phantom of the Attic in Pittsburgh. Picked this up and was like, this is such a cool, neat, tight role playing game. It actually comes in a I have a bunch of these lying around. I have these are like the $10 deluxe books, which is awesome. So it's a very economical game. A friend of mine at the Norman Game Nights in Pittsburgh actually, when she was looking at role-playing games to start, and I think she's on a budget, it was like, you can get this for $10 and run stuff all day with this. So, but I was looking for at the time was something to run steampunk or diesel punk. Like one of my favorite universes in general is the Crimson Skies universe by FASA. So I love that universe, and I thought I would play a role-playing game in that, and I thought I would do that with Savage Worlds. To date, in 6 years of playing Savage Worlds, still haven't done anything with Crimson Skies except for some quick notes. So real quick overview. Let's see what Johnny is saying. I knew your blog when you were in the wild. I think you were playing with your kids. I still play with my kids, Jonathan. Actually, I run a couple games of Deadlands with Cooper recently. We would have done it this weekend if I wasn't running Deadlands for grown-ups yesterday, which love playing with my son, really like playing Deadlands with grown-ups. You can kind of push the envelope on the PG-13/R rating when you have adults in the room. Real quick overview of what Savage Worlds is. The tagline is fast, furious, and fun. It plays quick, it's easy to learn, focuses on action, and it allows for speedy gameplay, especially with miniatures, because some games bog down with miniatures, and Savage Worlds is not one of those games. It stays quick, it stays light, it stays moving, whereas you're not really too focused on, there's action going on during the game. So it runs on a dice step mechanic. So D4, D6, D8, D10, D12. Everything in the everything you do works in the dice step. So your traits, your attributes, like your strength or a skill, will have a dice step attached. With D6 being average, a D8 being kind of exceptional, D10 being awesome, D4 being poor. So whatever you're rolling, you're rolling one of those dice, whatever's attached to what your attribute is. And then if you're a hero, like a player character, you're going to roll another D6 with it called a wild die and pick the higher of the two. That's the big separation between, heroes and like mooks. If like I don't know if you're watching like the Firefly TV show and there's the scene on Unification Day when they're all fighting in the bar and multiple folks are fighting, the heroes, Mal or Zoe or whatever would be, they have a wild die when they're rolling. If the other folks in the bar wouldn't have the wild die. So, and you always pick the higher result of the two. Kind of like now, I think 5th edition has the 2d20s. You roll one to the other, you have advantage. Some of them played 5e, so I don't know. But close to that, except you always get your wild die unless you're rolling damage. Damage, there's no wild die. But it gives the game a heroic feel. So again, those that know me from Dungeon Crawl Classics, where no one's a hero to start, you're no hero is the tagline of DCC. I love Savage Worlds because when I want to be a hero, and I want the players to be heroes, that's the game where you have heroes. There's no classes in Savage Worlds, but there's lots of character optimization through things called edges, which are kind of like feats, but they build your character up and they give you like a set of abilities, or they make you do certain things better than others. There's personality building hindrances. So, there's no alignment, but if you might be someone who's mean or someone who is loyal, or you might have something like wanted, where, someone's going to be coming after you in the game at some point in time, someone from your past. So hindrances help build role-playing moments for your character. Initiative is done with playing cards, with a deck of playing cards, which at first seems kind of clunky. And then you try it and you realize that countdown of going from, ace to 2 works really quickly. And it's always fun when jokers show up on the table. There's an in-game currency called bennies. In Deadlands, it's called fate chips. And those allow you to re-roll or to sometimes cancel out certain effects. And then campaign settings. The campaign settings. That's my favorite thing about Savage Worlds. Like campaign settings in Savage Worlds. I love that for the same reason I love adventure modules in Dungeon Crawl Classics. Like it's sort of like Savage Worlds has all the best campaign settings all wrapped up. They've got them all, and they have a ton of them. So if you're looking for something, a friend of mine, Will Keller, had sent me over something today just asking, well, first off, he asked my top 3 favorite Savage World settings, which I rattled them off that weren't Deadlands, because my Deadlands collection is massive. And I rattled them off pretty quickly. And he's like, well, I wanted to play something that's kind of like Supernatural or Buffy. I'm like, oh, East Texas University. Just boom, there's one. that you're in high school, you're in college, and you are hunting monsters. Boom, there you go. So there's something for everyone with the settings. And then the settings often have something called plot point campaigns attached to them. And what those are is these open world adventures where you have I don't want to say a linear plot. You have linear plot points that are encompassed and circled by other alternate paths. So it's kind of like a old school D&D hex crawl, but it's not, because it doesn't have to be like going through dungeons or overland marches or stuff like that. It can just be things that happened, optional encounters. And they're great if you're playing a game where you want to shake things up but have this main plot. At the end of the plot points, you finish something awesome and big. It's usually something world changing. And there's a ton of plot point campaigns. I know that I have one right now called The Flood that I really want to run this, but I've heard it can take a full year to go through this, and I'd like to run it in person with somebody, and I need to put this group together for The Flood. So that's one of my current laments. Hey, Joan Troyer, what's up, Joan? Said Deadlands seems to me like the movie Wild Wild West with Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell wasn't in Wild Wild. Wait, Will Ferrell? That was Kevin Kline and Will Smith. Will Ferrell. But yes, very similar. Yeah, it was, I would say Wild Wild West, especially the steampunkiness of Deadlands is definitely there. Briscoe County Jr., that's an old TV show with Bruce Campbell, who wrote the foreword for the original Deadlands Player's Guide. Not the original one, but one, I think maybe it was a later edition of it for the Deadlands Classic Guide. That was a show with him, short-lived. There's a few shows out there. I don't know. I like to have a like smattering of like Deadwood in my games, Al Swearingen, even though I don't know, it's maybe less cursing. I don't know. But yeah, so that would say that Deadlands has that. It's supernatural, it's horror, there's monsters, there's steampunk. It's pretty nice. Anyway, but so Deadlands. So this is the Deadlands Player's Guide. This is kind of like the old standby. This is awesome. A lot of great gaming in there. There's some great original settings. For instance, 50 Fathoms is a pirate setting, which Shane Hensley was watching Pirates of the Caribbean and wanted to write something like that together. What else do I have here? I got East Texas University here. So ETU is, as I just said, it's a game where you are in college. You have to like pass your classes and still, survive the horror. I've got, let's see here. So there's also those were like original settings or some licensed settings. The one I picked up recently was Six Gun, because I love the comic book. And, Alex Perricini's on. What's up, Alex? So the comic book, I know the role-playing was written by Scott Woodard, who's on viewing right now. I can't remember. It's Colin Bunn and Brian Hurt were the authors of the original comic book. I couldn't remember their names. So I want to make sure I give them a plug, because if you like Deadlands and you like weird Westerns, then this is this is the role-playing game. So you have the Savage Worlds thing there at the top. This is the RPG for Savage Worlds, but it's a really, really, really good comic book series if you like that kind of stuff, which I do because it's Westerns, and it's really good. So that's a licensed setting. They also have Flash Gordon, which I don't have, and they've got The Goon and Fear Agent. There's a bunch of licensed settings. I have a little bit of a setting glut, so I've tried to, in the last couple years, only go up to things that I know I'm going to be playing soon, but I could throw those 6 guns into Deadlands pretty easily. There's some awesome third-party products. For instance, Accursed, which made my favorite third-party Deadlands book. Anyone who's been following my blog for a while might remember in 2014 and 15, I ran the girls, Carrie and Evie, and my wife through an Accursed campaign. And Accursed is, I think I remember when there was the original what's it called? When Ross Watson, I think Jason and John Dunn were on, Jason Marker and John Dunn were on one of the podcasts for it originally. They said it's like kind of like Castlevania and Ravenloft. This is that game, but you're the monsters trying to do good and stuff. And then there's some settings that just mash together well. Oh, Tom Fritchman, what's up, man? Did I say hi to Tom already? I might have said hi to Tom already. I can't remember. I'm trying to make sure I talk to everybody. But Tom, if I said hi twice to you, you get a Benny. There's some really cool campaign settings that just mash well together. Also, like you could merge some of these. For instance, if you have Rippers Resurrected, which is kind of like gothic horror where you kill gothic monsters and then tear off their body parts and then plant them in yourself like cybernetics. If you like Rippers, but you also want to play Weird War I, they're close enough in time period, they mash together. I have mashed quite a few settings together in Savage Worlds. My favorite one I think I've mashed so far was when I took The Last Parsec, which was a sci-fi setting, kind of like Star Frontiers, and mashed it with East Texas University to make a game that was sort of like my take on Community meets Firefly. That was fun. So anyway, there's lots of settings. So the number one thing I want to say is if you are looking for running something in a setting you love or close to that, you need to go and check out Savage Worlds for that reason. All right. So on to the Adventure Edition. I'm sure I keep calling it the Adventurers Edition. I know it's the Adventure Edition, but for some reason that flies off my mouth faster. Let's see. All right, I'm going to screen share here. Let's see, can I do that? Can I screen share? I can screen share in a Google Hangout. Look at that. It looks backwards. I hope everyone can see it okay. So I realized by doing this, I'm outing myself at what level I'm backing at, but I really don't care. I'm backing at the top because I friggin' want it all. So right now, the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition is at just crested $360,000. And there's 10 days to go. So I think it's pretty easy to see this one's going to hit 400. I think I read today it's anywhere between $5,000 and $7,000 a day. It's kind of cooking through. So if there is a link to this below. Go below in the notes. Jump on, get on board the Kickstarter. The ultimate pledge level is awesome because it gets you a lot of swag. So this is the new cover for the game. This is everything comes with the ultimate level here. I mean, I'm not going to go through it all, but take a look. Essentially, there is a new core book coming out. There's a signed collector's edition coming out. It's only out for the Kickstarter. There is a package at $150. It comes with a box set that has all this cool swag in the box, as well as the core rules. And then at $200, you get the core rules and a collector's edition. So I'm getting 2 guides, which I need this book, and I need to get a Gen Con, and I need to get everyone to sign it because that is awesome. So anyway, so if you go through the Kickstarter page, it'll give you all these cool details about, the game. Plus, you'll see, I'm going to go down below. I'm sorry. This is all the stuff. I'm sorry. This is the stuff that's coming with the box. So it's like, why do I back at $150 to get swag? What swag is it? Well, there's gonna be this World Builder's Guide, which it started at 32 pages, but it seems like it keeps growing. I don't know how many pages it's at now. If anyone wants to drop that in the chat, go for it. But it keeps growing and it's getting different authors. Different writers are coming in and adding material, which is kind of cool. So it sounds like you'll have tidbits about running Savage Worlds or maybe any role-playing game from designers of Savage Worlds settings and adventures. It's going to have a new action deck that's coming out with it, which is going to be, well, you'll see. There's notes in there, but the action deck. This is like, this one here is going to be for. This is the playing cards, okay? Power cards for different spells. I didn't go through all this stuff in too much detail. I went to stuff I really wanted, which was dice and GM screen, which is in there. New bennies. All right, this is one of my favorite things that's coming with it. It's going to have the cone template and the burst template, but they're acrylic and clear, and I could always use more of these at my table because I have the ones from Litco, which one is cracked and I needed new ones, but I can hold off now. All right, the stretch goals are pretty cool. Like right now, you're getting a bunch of additional add-ons to the game, status tokens, things like that. But you'll notice when you go through this, and again, spend more time than I am, there's all these either Aces jump starts or PDF bundles being attached onto it. And it looks like what's happening here is there are all these third-party publishers that are giving material so you could try out different campaign settings. Again, this is all about the campaign settings and in PDF form, as well as some new campaign settings themselves. So one mini campaign setting, I'm jumping around, I'm sorry, was Abyssal, which was, let's see here. This is Shane Hensley presents a playable preview of a setting he's been quietly working on for years. Abyssal, an undersea family-based research team in the middle of Johnny Quest in the Marianas Trench. That's one of them. I mean, I think there's 3 of them or 4 of them at this point. I think there's 4. I don't know. There's a ton of free stuff. They're not free, but you know what I mean. A ton of extra stuff because you're backing. There's, you know, some of the original works of fiction, the Wendigo Tales line. I've read the last Parsec ones and the ones for, I think there was one for Weird Wars Rome. Oh, there it is with Utmost Dispatch. I've read those. I haven't read all of them. There's a bunch of those coming out for it that you can, they've already been written, but you get them with this Kickstarter. You get the PDF for Savage Worlds Tour of Darkness, which is like Weird West or Weird Wars Vietnam. And then the one I was kind of excited for was the Deadlands Noir stuff because I don't have it, didn't Kickstart it originally. And I don't, you know, now I'll get that. That's pretty cool. So anyway, all right, well, jump on that. Take a look at that. I'm going to jump out of this here for a second. I could spend a bunch of time going through that. I'm sure no one either wants to do that, or if you do, I just stopped, and I'm sorry. So, oh well. But follow it every day. I don't know, back it at $1 and just watch it go along. The one thing that's really cool about Savage Worlds Kickstarters that anything Pinnacle does really, I do want to note here is that. I didn't see the timeline for this, but typically when Pinnacle does a Kickstarter, they're about done with the product. They're pretty close to being finished. They're tweaking things. Like right now, they're working right now with the, you can see the preview of the chase rules because they've modified those. They're in tweak mode at the moment. At this stage, most of the time, they're not at Kickstarter phase with starting from scratch, which means that you are getting the PDFs not long after the Kickstarter. You know, within a month or so afterwards, you're getting materials from the Kickstarter. I remember when the last Parsec Kickstarted. I didn't get the book till that spring, but like 2 months after the last Parsec Kickstarter was over, I was running the last Parsec from the PDFs. The same with Weird Wars Rome. So if you like to have that, you know, that feeling of I'm getting my stuff sooner than later, you know, go in for the PDFs. I'm sure you'll have it way sooner than most Kickstarters give you your swag. I know. I mean, obviously, print Kickstarters, they have to print this stuff, and June 2019 is the target date for this. And I've not seen them miss their mark yet. Anything I backed for them, but yeah, which in that point in time, just in time, right after my 40th birthday, and just in time to use with my Dwarven Forge stuff, and my Reaper Bones 4 mini should be painted by then, right? Every single one of them. So I can use all those. Let's see here. All right, Paul saying, howdy, late because I was immersed in a little data analysis. That's okay, because nerdy. And then Scott Woodard is saying, yes, we're tweaking as we go along, but there is a complete book right now. So look at, you know, I should have, Scott, you know, in hindsight, I should have just had you on, you know? So I feel bad about that actually now. Again, because Scott is like one of the writers for Pinnacle, so who happened to be my friend, so that's cool too. Anyway, from what I've read of the game itself, of like the updates, I've shown you a bunch of settings, and I've said settings are like the thing. A new edition for Savage Worlds shouldn't like scare you off the same way as maybe like 4th edition D&D scared off 3rd edition or 3rd scared off 2nd. There is a lot of cross compatibility going down the line from edition to edition of Savage Worlds. It's much more of an update. First off, there's going to be like a compatibility guide, if you will, that lets you, if you have an older edition, run it in the newer edition. Second off, from the change I've read so far, the tweaks aren't hard to roll backwards. For instance, I read that, you know, charisma is going away. charisma was a derived attribute in Savage Worlds. There wasn't a charisma stat, but you might have a +2 to your charisma, which meant that if you were any social interaction, you have a +2 bonus to do it. What that led to, and it's funny because I know Shane talked about it, I believe, on the podcast with the Savage Cast, was like PCs, they're just stocked out with charisma. And I've had that PC who's like stacked charisma or attractive with like persuasion, especially in a necessary evil campaign where it's superheroes and they have, you know, like all personality type stuff for their powers. Like they can talk about everything. Like they're just constantly talking. I mean, and you have to have some kind of fighting, right? You can't just discuss and talk about every kind of situation, but charisma could just kind of take over that face role. And they're tweaking that. So I believe the edge is just based on different like maybe an edge to just augment intimidation or persuasion. So Scott says next time, next time we will have to have something. Yeah, and he has to run, so that's cool. So Scott, thanks for jumping on and for adding what you added. I appreciate it, man. And Reed Sanfilippo is saying glad to see Christmas being taken out. Yeah, I mean, I was never, I was able to control it in my games, but it definitely was something that needed to be like tweaked. XP is going to be gone. So the one thing with XP that I should note is that originally it was every 5 XP and you gain a advance. An advance could be increasing an attribute or increasing a couple of skills or increasing or adding an edge. Occasionally maybe buying off a hindrance if like the game serves, if you can role play that out. What with now it's going to be you get an advance after so many sessions, because you might have a short campaign where you want to advance the characters quickly or slowly. Like I always almost just said every second session there should be an advance, and you can do that, or every third session, every fourth session, or every one session, whatever works for you. Chase has been updated. Chase rules. There's an updated quick encounter rules in there. There's that penalty is gone. I believe Shane was mentioning on the Savage Cast podcast that penalty's gone for buying in your skill at when you bet a new skill. Originally you had to spend your entirety of your advance to increase a skill to D4 if you don't have that skill before. And now it's going to be that it's still just one. An advance can update increases 2 skills. Now it just costs you 1 of that half to increase. So far I like what I hear. I'm enjoying what's being released, and every day they're adding new stuff. So anyway, so that's my spiel. We had some questions turned in. I'll answer what I've got here coming up in the chat here first. Tom Frischman asks, it's been ages since I played Savage Worlds. Sorry. I don't know what you're apologizing to, man. Now's a good time. How much arithmetic is there? I don't think there's that much. So the important thing is know your divisible by 4 table. That could be helpful. And, basic addition on dice. I say division by 4 because when you roll something, your target number is typically a 4. And cool things happen based on every 4 more that you get on that target. So for instance, if you are rolling for damage, no, don't pick damage. Damage is a bad option for that. I mean, same thing, but let me pick a skill. Skills are easier. Your target for skill is always a 4. So let's say you roll a 4 on when you're swimming. Success. If you roll an 8, it's success with a raise. The GM might say that you're swimming a bit faster, or might say that you're a strong swimmer and you're able to, I don't know, if you're dragging someone, help drag them a bit further, or something like that. So raises happen in multiples of 4. For damage, your damage has to beat a target's toughness, which is kind of like sort of like armor class, but there's no hit points in this game. So parry is kind of like armor class. Whatever you beat a toughness by, you're dividing that by 4, and that's like how many raises you get, which is how many wounds you're going to cause. So that's something you might want to know, which happens pretty quickly. At first, it can slow things down when you're learning the game, like any kind of system. That's the slowest it gets. But what's nice is a lot of miniatures on the table. If you're playing with minis, they're either up they're down, they're off the table. They're either standing up, they're acting, they're down, they're shaken, or you're moving them from the table because they're off because they're a mook and they shouldn't be there. They're just, they take their hit, they're dead. So that's the toughest the math gets. So I hope that helps. A question I got from, and if you have any questions, toss them in. So toss them in the chat. I got a question before we started from Chris Corvo. What are your thoughts on the simple, quick conflict resolution rules they introduced? So I think it was 2 updates ago. Shane mentioned that they had played around with quick encounters. And what those are is they're ways to have an interaction, kind of like a skill challenge from D&D 4E, which I like that aspect. There are ways to have an encounter where something's happening. There's action happening, might not be combat related, and everyone is supposed to take a part in that. An example I would use is like a B-17 bomber crew. Let's say you're playing a Weird Wars 2 setting and you're bombing a secret installation that is they're designing zombies. I don't know, that Overlord movie I think is going to be werewolves. Let's say this is zombies. All right. And you get lost in the clouds somehow. And there are these spectral ghost triplanes from World War I that have appeared in the fog, because that's the Third Reich has found a way to bring back the souls of dead airmen. And these spectral triplanes are attacking. And you're in the fog. You have to regain formation. What are you going to do? Instead of having initiative with the cards, everyone agrees about one skill they're going to use. And they go in order, and as they're doing what they're doing is going to help or hinder other people doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, for instance, a navigator might need to make a notice roll to spot the triplanes coming. The pilot might make a piloting roll to dodge an incoming triplane trying to dodge them as they're coming after them. The co-pilot might make a repair roll to maybe like help boost the engines a bit to climb, and the gunner is going to make the shooting roll against one of the triplanes possibly. You do 4 quick rolls, you do the challenge very quickly, and it's over, it's happened, it's been success or failure, and it's a nice way to just make sure everyone's doing something. It's kind of like the old Star Wars games I would play. You'd have all the players on the Millennium Falcon or whatever ship you were using, finding a reason for all of them to do something. But quick encounters, they're designed to happen, pretty speedy, just so you can move on, to have that affect the situation and move on. If it's a life or death, I think the way it's written is to slow things down and do it in formal combat. So, but I like it. I think that it's I think it's going to be a cool system. And the cool thing is, if you want to see exactly what they wrote, go back up to their updates on the link below. Go to the updates and go read the part. They'll have it out for you. You can go read it. Reed Sanfilippo asks, is there anything you hope will be added to the collector's box? Man, they have dice in there. They have a lot of stuff already in there that I hope would be added. They're adding all the PDFs. The one thing I wanted was, a few weeks ago, I had wanted a campaign setting for, for the Revolutionary War period. I went to the Museum of the American Revolution with the wife and family, and I'm like, is there a Revolutionary War setting out there for some system? And I didn't see any. People kept saying GURPS. I don't own any GURPS. Do they even make GURPS anymore? So there, Matthew Cutter is doing Spirits of 1786, which is going to be a setting. I think the War of Independence is one, but the Herculean effort to build a more perfect union has only started. This isn't history. This is pulp history in the post-revolutionary era. So same time period. So I mean, I'm sure I can either take that and pull that back a bit into 1776, or maybe leave some stuff in there for that. I would say up until I think today or yesterday, I was hoping that they have those in print, and that's been added. So I think one thing I would really like, there are 2 either posters or prints coming out for the in the box. There's one with a character, like a cyberpunk character, and there is one, I believe, of the cover art I would not mind seeing some more prints. I really like prints. I like framing stuff now. So I think there's one thing I would like is some prints, but maybe some prints of some of the original settings, some of the older settings, like Weird Wars Rome or Last Parsec. I don't know if that's something I could see them putting in the box for everyone, but that's I would really like some more prints because yeah, I have room. Actually, I should note this wall usually has swag, and there's a leak above my head, above my gaming books that we caught before it leaked. So they have to fix that. There's a giant hole in my ceiling right now. So all my gaming books are somewhere safe at the moment. So, but yeah, so I think prints, art. I am an art junkie. I would love to have more art. So Reed, that's what I want at this point. So Paul Bernhardt's asking, compare the difficulty for newbies to Numenera Cypher for newbies. Okay. I think one thing I love about a lot of the role-playing games, all three, there's only three. Well, I do play Lamentations of the Flame Princess also, but nowhere near as much as these three. I think that Cypher, Cypher System, and Savage Worlds, and Dungeon Crawl Classics all are easy to learn. And I think I gravitate towards those because I'm always showing games off to either, kids or friends of my kids or friends of my family or my friends. So I like games that are easy to teach. I would say I have a belief that Savage Worlds is easier to teach on the front end to new players, but harder to master. Not harder, but there's just more depth to it. And the reason I say that is this. In Savage Worlds, it's really easy to say, look at your sheet. What's it say for your skill? It's a D8, roll that. And the hardest thing the player has to do is to grab that die and their wild die and roll them. That's the hardest thing they have to do. It's not hard. It does take some learning sometimes of don't add the dice together and make sure you do the math of if you ace. I should note, if you don't know the game, if you roll the maximum on a die, it aces and the die explodes. You get to roll again and add to it. So that's what an exploding dice mechanic is, and acing is what they call it in Savage Worlds. I think Savage Worlds is easier to learn on the front end for new players. I think that there's a bit more because in Cypher System, you're dealing with the skill pools and draining those and spending effort and stuff like that. Just rolling in Cypher is easy. You're just trying to beat a target number. Whatever it is, if your difficulty is 4, you multiply by 3 and get your target number, you're beating up the D20. So if your difficulty 4, you're trying to roll a 12 or higher. Not too hard either, but the idea of you have to the management of the might, speed, and intellect pools of how do you manage when you should spend from them or conserve. That's a bit harder, I think, for players that are new. But again, either system I think is learned pretty easily. I think there's a bit more customization in Savage Worlds with the characters because there's no class. So mastering that, in Cypher System, if you pick one of the types and you pick your focus and your descriptor, it's going to kind of have you in line with what you're going to get every tier. With the Cypher System or with Savage Worlds, you're going to have to maybe spend some time thinking about what edges you're going to have going up and as you advance and plot that out. And it's not going to be fed to your character. So that customization could be a challenge to master. What's nice is that there are enough templates out there and archetypes that you can kind of base your character around. Very frequently, the sample characters you'll get from different systems. And if you go to Pinnacle's website, there's almost always sample characters for any of their settings. They're all built at the seasoned level, so which is after 4 advancements. So you kind of see where a character is after advancing a good bit. So I don't think it's that hard. I think it's about on par maybe when all is said and done. But if I was having to teach from scratch, I would probably say that the easiest of the 3 systems I run in order of difficulty for starting characters is probably Dungeon Crawl Classics, because you aren't building anything. It's all random at first level, and you're rolling just D20. Savage Worlds is in the middle, and then Cypher Systems over here in challenge rating. I don't know. They're all pretty easy. See other questions. Alex Pericchini is saying I need you to convert to Zweihander and Warhammer. No. Again, nothing against either. First off, I don't know. I guess for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, I guess you're saying, because I have a few Warhammer miniatures. I have Mordheim miniatures. That's kind of like Warhammer, sorta. And Zweihander, I think I have the core book PDF for that. I think, or at least a sample of it. And I was looking at it, and that's some meaty stuff. So. I don't know. That's a bit meaty. Okay, yes, Warhammer Fantasy Role Playing. Now, you know what? If I show up with any more role playing games in this house, I'm already trying to sell off some of the books that I have. If I show up with any new ones, any new systems, I think that Jen's going to come after me, and I might have a hard time. So anyway, so yeah, so I think that's it. Unless any other questions pop through, just in closing, if there's one thing you do from watching this video is please go below. Please take a look at the Kickstarter. I'm not getting anything from this but sharing the love. This is a pure joy of this game and wanting other people to play it and have a great time and just get involved in the game and the community. The Facebook community for Savage Worlds is awesome. There's an official Facebook group. I'm one of the admins over there, so when you have to answer the question of how do you know about this game, you can put James Wall's had a live stream I watched, and we'll let you in. We won't know you're not a bot or a Russian troll or whatever. But anyway, so there's a great community out there for the game. Lots of savages out there wanting to teach the game, and lots of cool, fun, awesome. Just it's a really good game. You'll really enjoy it, and so go back even just at the PDF level, give it a shot. And if you like this video or you like the fact that I make these videos, you can like, comment, subscribe. If you comment any questions, I will answer them best I can, or I will defer you to one of the people that really knows something about this game, and not just the vlogger who's on here looking for something to chat about because he had some spare time on a Sunday night and wanted to get a little more content up. But anyway. So that's me. Have a great evening, everyone, and a great week, and happy gaming. See y'all later.